Step aside. You don't belong here. Not allowed. Go back where you came from." Every eye in the hall fixed on Maria, the janitor who had quietly endured years of humiliation. Now, she moved with precision, grace, and unshakable poise. The millionaire's wife, Evelyn Carmichael, expected compliance. What she didn't anticipate was defiance. The room froze as Maria's calm, controlled actions turned power on its head. This is the story of everyone fearing the millionaire's wife, until the new waitress exposed her weakness. Comment your city below if you're watching and witness courage overturning injustice. It was an ordinary morning at the university. Professor Jonathan Hayes adjusted his crisp shirt and polished shoes, walking the familiar corridors where he had taught for over a decade. Students greeted him politely, some with smiles, others with barely a glance, but he barely noticed. His life was a rhythm of lectures, grading papers, and quiet evenings at home, the world feeling comfortably predictable. Outside, the city hummed with activity, the same buses rumbling past, the same street vendors calling out their daily specials. Meanwhile, in the same building at the far end of the campus basement, Maria the janitor pushed her mop down the worn floors with careful attention. Her uniform was plain, her shoes scuffed, but she moved with a quiet diligence, a pride in keeping the place spotless. She had been working here for years, often overlooked, a shadow in the background of the grand halls where professors and students mingled. Her life was simple, measured by shifts and routines. And yet, beneath her calm exterior, a stubborn resilience burned an unshakable sense of dignity that no one seemed to notice. Jonathan and Maria had passed each other countless times, sharing nothing more than a nod or a polite greeting. Yet their worlds were about to collide in ways neither could have imagined. The university, polished and prestigious, carried a hidden undercurrent of hierarchy, some subtle, some overt, where whispers and glances could cut deeper than any words. And the one person who seemed to wield invisible power over everyone else, the millionaire's wife, who had recently become a prominent donor and patron of the university, held a reputation for cruelty thinly veiled behind polite smiles. That morning, a tension lingered in the air, subtle but unmistakable. It wasn't yet visible to Jonathan, who continued to walk with confidence, or to Maria, who focused on the streak-free shine of the hallway tiles. But the first cracks of injustice were forming, invisible to the casual eye, waiting to erupt in a way that would challenge not just the hierarchy of the campus, but the very way people saw themselves and each other. The tension began subtly, almost imperceptibly. Jonathan noticed it first in the way the millionaire's wife, Evelyn Carmichael, swept through the university hallways, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floors. Her eyes seemed to measure everyone she passed, lingering a moment too long on those she deemed inferior. Maria felt it in the rooms. She cleaned the sudden hush when Evelyn entered, the barely concealed smirks from staff who wanted to prove their loyalty by ignoring her presence. It wasn't direct yet, but the weight of disdain pressed down like an invisible hand. One afternoon, the clash became undeniable. Jonathan was in the faculty lounge reviewing lecture notes, when Evelyn burst in with her entourage, her voice dripping with condescension. She announced a new initiative, praising only those professors she favored while casting subtle, cutting remarks at others. Jonathan felt the sting, but he dismissed it as typical elitism. Maria, nearby in the service corridor, overheard the remarks, each word a reminder of how little she and others like her mattered in this gilded world. She gritted her teeth, gripping her mop tighter, determined to maintain her dignity in the shadows. Weeks passed and the injustices grew bolder. Evelyn's influence extended to invitations and awards, often excluding those she deemed unworthy. Jonathan noticed colleagues bending under her gaze, their smiles forced, their laughter hollow. Meanwhile, Maria endured whispered insults, doors subtly closed in her face, and petty sabotages meant to humiliate her while keeping them out of sight. The pressure was relentless. Every day, the invisible lines of power tightened around her, and yet she persisted, cleaning halls that gleamed like mirrors while her own life remained overlooked. Then came the incident that would ignite change. Evelyn had arranged a grand university luncheon, intending to showcase her power and humiliate those beneath her. Jonathan was asked to host a portion of the event, while Maria was assigned to serve, a role she had performed countless times without recognition. But as the luncheon unfolded, Evelyn's disdain became impossible to ignore. She mocked the staff in subtle ways, pouring wine unevenly, misplacing utensils, and exchanging knowing glances with favored faculty. Maria felt the heat of every pair of eyes on her. A silent expectation to fail, but Maria, for the first time, refused to shrink. Her movements were precise, her poise undeniable. Evelyn's smirk faltered as she realized her attempts at humiliation were failing. Each act of grace, each careful gesture, became a quiet rebellion, invisible to most, but deafening to those who understood the stakes. The room began to shift, tension snapping like a live wire. Jonathan noticed it, too. The collective realization that someone long underestimated was refusing to be diminished. And then, as Evelyn prepared for the final act of her dominance, a moment arrived that would leave everyone frozen, unsure of what would happen next. A single misstep, a quiet act of defiance. Or perhaps something more. Whatever it was, the tension in the room became unbearable. Every eye turned toward the unfolding scene, waiting for the unthinkable. The room fell into a tense silence. Evelyn Carmichael, confident and poised, prepared to deliver her final blow, expecting Maria to falter, to bow under the weight of humiliation. Every eye followed the millionaire's wife, waiting for the spectacle. Maria's hands shook ever so slightly, but her gaze was steady. The years of being overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed coalesced into a single moment of defiance. Evelyn gestured sharply, attempting to orchestrate a mishap, spilling a tray, creating a scene, but Maria moved with unerring precision. Every gesture, every motion turned the intended humiliation back on its originator. The room held its collective breath. Faces that once ignored Maria now registered shock, disbelief, even admiration. The subtle power Evelyn wielded so easily for so long began to crumble in real time. Jonathan watched from the side, heart pounding, realizing that the tables were turning. The injustice that had loomed over Maria and countless others was now visible to everyone. Evelyn's smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. The room's energy shifted from fear and tension to anticipation and awe. Then came the final moment to quiet. Deliberate action by Maria, so simple yet so devastating to Evelyn's carefully constructed authority, that it left the entire hall frozen. Whispers rippled through the crowd, the atmosphere electric with disbelief. Evelyn's reputation, built on fear and manipulation, had met its first true challenge. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments. The luncheon ended, but the echoes of that moment lingered far longer than anyone could have anticipated. Maria returned to her tasks, calm but transformed. For the first time, she felt seen not just for her work, but for her strength, her dignity, and her refusal to be diminished. Jonathan, too, carried a quiet sense of awe and respect, realizing that power and influence could be challenged, even in places where hierarchies seemed unshakable. Evelyn Carmichael, for all her wealth and status, had been confronted with a truth she had long ignored: fear and intimidation could only last so long when faced with quiet resilience. The walls of the university, once echoing with whispers of superiority and subtle discrimination, now held a new tensioner recognition that injustice could be met with courage, and that even those society overlooked could claim their place in the light. The incident rippled beyond the walls of the university. Colleagues and staff began to question old patterns, to examine their own biases, and to reconsider whom they valued and why. Maria's defiance became a symbol, a reminder that dignity cannot be bought, and respect cannot be demanded through fear alone. This wasn't just a story about one woman standing up to one powerful figure. It was a reflection of a world where racial injustice and social hierarchy persist in subtle ways. In everyday moments we often ignore. The question remains, how many more Marias are out there? Waiting for the world to finally notice, to finally respect, to finally change. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories and new videos.